Vladimir Putin's premiership has been shaken by the very public and very noisy betrayal of Wagner chief Yevgeny Prigozhin. While Prigozhin was not one of Putin's closest confidants, he was one of the most publicly recognizable Russian military leaders in the war in Ukraine. His sudden march on Moscow and subsequent exile to Belarus would surely have made even Vladimir Putin miss a step. Prigozhin claimed this action was designed to prove to the Kremlin that Russia's internal security was compromised, but it seems unlikely that he would have acted without some inkling of support from Russia's high command. So who is and isn't in Putin's inner circle? Sergei Shoigu, Minister of Defense. Yevgeny Prigozhin's main target in his mini-revolt was Shoigu, who he blames for causing the deaths of thousands of Russian soldiers during the war in Ukraine. Shoigu is close personal friends with Putin and has been pictured in the past going on hunting trips with the president. He's also a big beast of Russian politics, serving at the top level of government for decades and once considered a contender for the presidency. Although he has been pictured sitting far away from Putin at round-table meetings, he has managed to weather the storm and embarrassment brought on by Prigozhin's march. Staunch ally or sycophant aside, it isn't clear whether Shoigu holds any real sway over Putin, or whether he's simply a helpful whipping boy for the obvious mishandling of the war. Sergei Lavrov, Minister of Foreign Affairs. Russia's most senior diplomat has been the main international organ for Russia's invasion of Ukraine since the beginning of the war. Lavrov is a Putin fanatic and seems an unlikely source of any possible rumblings of discontent. He has stood defiantly in front of international political conventions, such as the UN and G20, attempting to justify Russia's invasion, and been unmoved in the face of walkouts and protests. It's unlikely he has any leadership role in Russia's military affairs, but he is probably the most well-known Russian official other than Putin himself. His commitment to the cause is undeniable, but he doesn't have the ear of the man himself. Alexander Botnikov, Director of the FSB. Head of the organisation once known as the KGB, Alexander Botnikov has been described as Putin's protege due to the similarities in their rises to power. The president is known to regularly meet with Botnikov, but it is apparent that he functions more as a security consultant rather than as an advisor. However, it is likely that Botnikov saw Ukraine's attempts to join NATO as a direct security threat to Russia and promptly informed his boss. Viktor Zolotov, Director of the National Guard. Zolotov used to be personal bodyguard of Putin and has risen to be head of Russia's National Guard. He has no military training, but he and his men have been sent to Ukraine as a sort of clean-up crew behind enemy lines. The National Guard's main job is to put down uprisings at home, and Mr. Zolotov was happy to claim credit for defending Moscow from Mr. Prigozhin's mutiny. Afterwards, he said the president promised his men tanks and heavy weapons, maybe as a reward, or maybe in belated recognition that they were ill-prepared to face a foe like Wagner. Zolotov was one of the first Russian officials to hear about Prigozhin's intentions, and recently saw his men get a promotion for their actions during the revolt. It's hard to see how Putin could be unsure of the man he quite literally trusted with his life. Valentina Matviyenko, chairwoman of the Federal Council. A key enabler of Putin's martial ambitions for many years, Matviyenko was responsible for troop deployments in Crimea and now Ukraine. She posted on the social media app Telegraph that she had the sole responsibility for the mobilization of troops ahead of Russia's latest war. Matviyenko is trusted to follow through with some of the Kremlin's most unpopular diktats. Her loyalty seems unquestionable. Others, such as Shoigu, have disappeared for weeks at a time, sparking rumours they were being disciplined. However, she is not considered to be in the top echelons of Putin's people. Sergei Narishkin, Director of the Foreign Intelligence Service. Narishkin is not thought to be a major player in Putin's circle, especially after his public dressing down in a televised meeting with Putin after the war started. But he is another spy, so perhaps part of a more clandestine brotherhood.
Сегодня говорится. Что значит, в противном случае вы предлагаете начать переговорный процесс?
Нет, я...
He has worked with Putin for over 30 years and has on multiple occasions denied Russian involvement in cyber and poison attacks. He's a believer in the Russian cause and is understood to advise Putin on ideological justification for his actions, such as war. Nikolai Petrushchev, Secretary of the Security Council. If there is one man that Vladimir Putin actually listens to, it is Nikolai Petrushchev. Petrushchev is a polarizing figure even in Russia. He holds an extreme position and often touts conspiracy theories. Recently, he referred to alleged plans that the US were looking to take over Russia in the event that the Yellowstone volcano erupted. Known as the devil on Putin's shoulder, Petrushchev has advised Putin that Russia is locked in an existential conflict with the US and must do everything to oppose them. Putin's pivot to far more hardline views may be largely down to him. His hatred of the US and complete trust from Putin means he is likely the first person the president turns to when making the big calls. Valery Gerasimov, Chief of General Staff of the Russian Armed Forces. Valery Gerasimov is perhaps Putin's most disappointing son, but the president must still have some belief in his most senior general. Gerasimov was meant to deliver a quick victory in Ukraine, a result that never transpired. His deputy, Sergei Surovikin, a pro-Wagner general and Gerasimov's deputy, has gone missing following the uprising. Gerasimov's credentials are now likely under more scrutiny than ever. Despite being on thin ice, Gerasimov has never shown public disapproval towards Putin. He has in the past been missing from public events, perhaps as a punishment.